Johnson, and this is focused on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Country, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another section of Focus on Liberia on the Marketplace. I am your host, Gabriel Carter. Today, I am in the studio with Percy Harris. He's a regular contributor on the FOL here on the Marketplace. I think we took a week off. We wanted to do the part 2 of the Central Bank of Liberia audit, but I think we beat down that horse already. So we plus last week was my birthday, so I didn't want to come
really?
on here on my birthday. Yeah, man.
So
but today we're coming back with another session for you. Today we want to talk about the prospective $3 billion MOU between the government of Liberia and the Chinese government. We want to talk about a lot of things about that deal. I know it's an MOU, but I think a lot of people are being, are pushing a little bit further than what it is. This is just an MOU, as we were talking about. So we want to look at the implication on the political side. We don't do politics on this show, but we want to we'll, make an exception today to dive into that a little bit. But most importantly, what we want to talk about is what does that mean from a debt to GDP perspective if that were to get executed. What is it being earmarked for? What are the terms? How is it being structured? How do we plan on repaying that? So we want to look at all of those things and really look at it from our, as we always do here on the finance and economics perspective, and what does that mean for the country? So, thank you for joining us wherever you are. Please share the show and come with your comments, perspective. We love perspectives, and let's have a discussion about that. Harris, I know you probably read about this deal. From what I've seen on social media, there's been a lot of excitement. I think people, as I said earlier, people are pushing it a little bit further than they ought to be. But we don't want to bust their bubble, but we just want to bring a little bit of reality as to what it is and how we should look at it. What was your initial thought about this deal? What do you think about this deal from the onset? This MOU.
I come and be my daughter, right? Usually when I ask her how was school today, then she can say good and bad. I said, okay, let's do good first. I said, let's do good first before we get to the bad part, right? So she can say good and bad. So the good thing is, the Liberian government are making some efforts to attract investment into the country, so that's good. right?
Mhm.
So it is a good thing when your country can go out there and and lobby investors to make investment in the country. It is
Yeah.
a good thing. It's a good start. So that in and of itself, we have to give the government, the administration, the requisite credit for that. Now,
Mhm.
um, having said that, is that this is just an MOU. Is Yeah, it's just an MOU. An MOU is what it is. A memorandum of understanding, right?
Mhm.
It's just what it says. Just what you hear it saying is it's not a deal. It's not a
Mhm.
deal. It's not a commitment. It's just it's not even a framework. It's a precursor to a
Right.
framework, right?
Right.
That two people come together and have, okay, my man, I want to invest in your country. Yeah, you want to invest in my country, invest in my country. Okay, we got that understanding. Okay, yeah, that's something along those lines. So this is not even a commitment to invest in your country. It's just an understanding on both parties' part, right? There's no structure here. We don't know the structure of what this whole thing could take, right? The
Mhm.
proposal might they are saying 3 billion up or down, 5 billion or less, whatever the case might be. So the number is not it's just being thrown out there. It's not fixed, right? So think about it is I mean, it's a good thing, but we need to tame down the expectation of the population, right?
Mhm.
Because if you tell people you bring in people coming build $3 billion refinery in Liberia based on an MOU, that's just not realistic, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things has to happen for that to see the light of day. So basically, that's what my take was on it.
Yeah. So I'm glad there's a great point you just made, and I think we should dive a little bit into that because I want to provide a little bit of clarity on that. And I was just taking notes on that, and you just mentioned that. What do you think those due diligence on our side should mean? Like, what do you think based on the prospective MOU, right? Like you said, it's just a MOU, meaning there are certain things that need to happen on the government library side, meaning they need to do their own due diligence. And also on the Chinese side, they have to do their own due diligence, whether we are an investable country worth deploying 3 billion of their capital into. What do you think needs to happen on our side, and what do you think needs to happen on the Chinese people's side, or what do you think the Chinese people will be looking for once they come into the country to do their assessments on that
No,
perspective?
the
Understand?
Chinese does not have too many strings attached as opposed to us in the West, as opposed to the Western companies, right? They doesn't
Right.
have. They know what they want. They want profits. They want to be able to do their business with all hindrance, right?
Hmm.
They already know what the Chinese already know what they want in this deal. If in this prospective deal, right? They already know what they want.
Right.
What our government needs to do is to know what we want or what we stand to get from this deal in terms
Hmm.
of infrastructure, in terms of
Hmm.
job creation, in terms of
Hmm.
environmental integrity, those kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
So we as a government and the people needs to sit down and say, okay, yeah, the Chinese come in, they bring in 3 billion, but what do we get in return for 3 billion,
Hmm.
right? What kind of is what kind of financing they're doing here? Are they coming to build it at their own expense and then you know what I mean? Take out the cost over time, you know. We have to figure all that while we celebrate, while our people are celebrating. Technocrat needs to go into overdrive and start to figure these things out. How many jobs are we going to create for our people? Because that's the base. That one of the things that's killing the country. There's no jobs there for our people, right? That's why crime's
Hmm.
high. That's why all kinds of things happen. So how much job are these people trying to get from this 3 billion, right? What kind of infrastructure do we do? I mean, are we looking at here? How long is it going to take? What kind of
Hmm.
financing is it going to take to do these things? How the Chinese going to finance these things that they are
Yeah.
talking about? All these things, our government needs and figure that out because I suppose the Chinese already have that figured out on their end, or they are already trying to figure it out on their end. Liberia
Yeah.
needs to do the same on her side.
Yeah. I mean, great take. I agreed. There's one thing you mentioned that I think is very important as well. If you are going to somebody to ask for them to come invest in your country, meaning, like, I agree with you. The Chinese have already done their due diligence, maybe, or maybe they're probably a third of the way into that
Yeah.
process.
Mhm.
We need to now sit back, I think, like you said, to really focus on what we want out of it. But I think most importantly, one of the things that I also want us to talk about, we'll get into that later, is the structure. what does it mean for the country? How are we going to structure it? Are we going to give out concession again for 3 billion, or is this going to be a strictly cash flow deal, meaning based on the country's ability to continue to grow its revenue and be able to service that? How do we want to go about this? What does that mean from the debt to GDP perspective? We're already at 2.2, with 3 billion coming in based on the duration of this term of this prospective MOU. It could mean we could be at 5.3 billion. That will put us over 100% debt to GDP. Is that something we're able to sustain? But you mentioned something very important too, meaning, which I think, I like to say this, and I think we see this across African countries as well. Sometimes what we think is good for the government in the long run doesn't work for
Work
the
well for the
country.
country. Yeah.
Yep. And sometimes, and this is why sometimes there's always a disconnect. I always give the example. Nigeria. Nigeria floated a currency because that's what IMF required them to
Told them
do
to do.
for them to get
Yeah.
money, right? For the
Uh-huh.
for the government, that was a sweet deal. They had to do it for them to get that capital or funding that they needed. But for the country, right now, Nigeria is in a crisis in terms of how they're performing. It is horrible for the citizen. So that's another aspect we have to look at. Is this deal a good deal for the government, or is it something that's going to work out in the interest for the citizen as well, in terms of the country as large, right? And I think you mentioned job creation, and also one of the things I think that's near and dear to your heart, the environmental aspect of it. What, based on your thought process, how many jobs do you think, like if you were in that process, how many jobs would you want to create with this kind of infusion of project that is coming into your country?
So my understanding is the building a refinery, right? That this deal is about building a refinery in Bicano in Grand Bassa, right?
Hmm.
So to
Hmm.
speak. Um, how many jobs you right? We
Estimate. Let's say
refining.
if you were to estimate, yeah. Given this is in
Um,
that's in Grand Bassa, right?
yeah, that's in
Yeah.
Grand
Okay.
Bassa. So a $3
Okay.
billion project should be bigger than that of LPRC and whatnot. So
Hmm.
that's a because I don't think LPRC is kind of modest in the kind of investment that went in there. So we're talking $3 billion is a lot of money.
It's a
So I
quantum.
mean, at least yeah, it's a lot of money, but I think give and take, um, I don't know,
I
100 to
mean, you don't have to give
200,000.
an estimate, but do you think that job creation should be and the environmental should be some of the two priority that we really focus
Yeah,
on?
it should be balanced out. The
Right. Right.
jobs creation, the investment and the job, and what how much job is going to create
Right.
should balance out the environmental degradation or whatever that's going to happen to the
Right.
country, and the communities that are going to be affected should also
Yeah.
be involved in this conversation also.
Hmm.
So that's what I think, and that's why our government should start to say that we can't have people in Monroeville
Hmm.
decreed what happened in the counties, and then
Yeah.
they turn it back when after they have collected whatever they have collected. These people are in business. The communities are suffering from the impact, and then everybody turn a blind eye. We can't do that. This have to be done at a national level. They have to be done at a county-wide consultation. Communities have to be involved. All these things. That's how modern concession work around the world. That's why you don't hear too much noise in other countries, because these people
Hmm.
take the time to dot their I's and cut their Q's correctly. Our
Hmm.
our in our process, everybody's happy right now about 3 million or 3 billion. Sorry, 3 billion coming to the country. Nobody's asking the hard questions, right? What kind of negotiation we're supposed to be doing for this? How do we prepare our negotiators? Those kinds of stuff. And I was talking to you at the beginning of the show, right?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you have these big companies coming to your country, these people have their stocks in the bowl. They have their lawyers, they have
Hmm.
their people that have already done the feasibility, everything, or
Financiers
an
who done.
assessment. And
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they've done their homework already,
Yeah.
then they come to you, and then you bring your minister of finance. No disrespect. You bring your minister of finance, your minister of labor. You bring I mean, I respect these people that hold these positions, but I also think you should go and contract people of institution of similar caliber, so that you have an equal partnership on the table in terms of your negotiation. So you're not just people not just ripping you off and ripping the country off in the process, right? That's
Yeah.
what can happen, right? You spend the money on your side so that you can be equivalent to these guys here, so that it's gonna be a balanced deal. It's not gonna be nobody gonna be tipping the skills that like we have with Firestone, right? Or we have with ArcelorMittal and these other concessionaires that are in the country right now. We can't continue to go down this path, right? I don't know if this is going to be a concession, right? I don't know yet, but whatever the deal might be, we still needs to sit down and talk about this from a sensible point of view, something that's actually makes sense for us as a country and as a people, not just
Yeah.
for the political effect of people bringing investment into the country because the other government did not bring it there in the 6 years. That's not how it should be.
Perfect. My last question before we jump into the other the question that we have laid out for this. Do you think, and I think you alluded to this as well. Do you think we have currently the caliber of people in the government who can really ensure that if we go to the negotiating table, I think you actually did mention uh, uh, lawyers, the caliber of lawyers, people who have structured these type of deal. Do you think we have that kind of caliber of people? Or like we usually say technocrats.
Yeah.
Don't laugh. Let me land. Don't laugh. Let me land.
He
Do you
tried
think
to
we
put
have
it
those caliber of people in there who can really go
low.
in there and craft such a deal that not just now, as I always like to say, not just now, but something we can look at later on down the years and say that was a very effective deal. That was well structured that the country is still benefiting from. Do you think we have those caliber of people in the government right now?
I've always said and I maintain like real problem is not education anymore, Gabby. It's
Right.
having the right people, right? We do have Liberians with the expertise and the
Mhm.
knowledge and the technical know-how how to craft these deals. The problem is the government going to leverage the expertise so that we can have a better deal for the country. And,
Mhm.
forget about the politics, forget about who you're friends with, why not. If this guy can do a piece of job that is going to be very good for you, can you leverage his idea? Whatever else might be going on, how you feel about the person, you can put personal feelings into this. You want the best
Yeah.
for the country. If we all want the best for the country, then we should start looking for our best and the brightest people. Even if you don't
Mhm.
want to bring them in government, they don't have to be in government, but bring them to consult with the government so that they can tell the government, give the government, get the government the best deal that they can for the country. That's my thing. I don't know if we have. I can't speak for the government. I don't know people. Everybody. I know Gav is a solid guy. I know Gav from very well. He's a senior. He's a senior colleague. I know him from my JJ Rao days, and as a student, he
Mhm.
was. They were the senior comrades. So I know Gav is a solid guy, right? I know there are other solid people in government also. So, but my thing is, are they going to be a part of these negotiations, right? Are they going to bring to bear all these intellectual and technical know-how into this in the process? That's my thing. History have shown that typically we don't bring our best and our brightest to the table. we leave it to the whims and caprices of the foreign investors to call the shots. We don't bring our best and our brightest, and so we get picked apart. Our country, you can look at the country, look at the kind of deals that we get, look at the kind of
Mhm.
deals we have gotten over the years and in recent times, right? You can look at it and see. So I hope we'll look back to history, of other concessions and try
Yeah.
to rectify these things prospectively.
Okay. So now, and thank you for that take. Let's really jump into the piece that we're excited about, right? Meaning,
Mhm.
let's look at this now from a finance and economic side, right? Um, so what you know, what do you if what do you think should be the structure of this deal? Meaning, when I say what do you think should be the structure, um, meaning, is this something that they will be thinking about in terms of, you know, the rate. I don't know if this is going to be a loan or whatever private public partnership deal that they're going to structure or whatever the case might be. How do you think this should be structured? You know, and I want you to look at it from the context of given that we're already at $2.3 billion in debt, right? Um, how would you go about structuring this? You know,
Look, um, I don't want to speculate because there's not a lot of details out there about
Mhm.
what the arrangement is going to be. It's still an MOU. We just throwing big figures around 3 billion and
Right.
whatnot.
But if
So
you were
it,
in the like the due diligence piece of it, knowing that you've done the environmental due diligence, you look at the job aspect of it, and you say you look at the economic history of this country, you know where we are economically at this country, and
mhm.
somebody will put you in charge to structure this. How would you, what would you, how would you go about it?
Look, I believe that any deal in Liberia, right? Any such deal in Liberia should be, if it's not 60/40, it should, the best we should get from our natural resources. And I mean 60/40 is in 60 in terms of in favor of Liberia and 40 in terms of whoever else is coming. Right. If it's not
Yeah.
60/40, it should be 50/50. And in
Mhm.
that 50/50 deal, that, and then we're talking P2, right? Public private partnership, P2P,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So in that 50%, there should be a strong impetus on the part of the government to get Liberians involved in these kinds of investment, right? I give you an
Mhm.
example. Nestle, the cocoa company that makes Nestle, right? They have A class. When they did it, they have A class, B class shares for their when they
Investors.
did the D for Nestle, right? Yeah. So what happened is the B class share basically is, I mean, the A class share is for the government, the B class share is for the citizenry, right? Citizens of
Mhm.
the country should be highly vested in those things, right? So that way you have a Liberia component, right? So it's not just the foreigners that are controlling the entire thing now, right? You have a Liberian component. Liberian are vested in their own country. So they're
Mhm.
not, it's not just the foreigners that's calling the shot. It's actual Liberians that's actually involved in there also as equal partners. But not only that, but they are reaping the economic benefits from that. I give you an
Mhm.
example. I give you a very old example about somebody that invested in a country. We call this guy JJ Roberts, right? JJ Roberts had a coffee farm, right? When he was dying, he left it over to the United Methodist University, I mean church, to run it for as a scholarship program. Why not? Guys like me benefited from that. Children are still benefiting from that. So think about
Mhm.
what we can do with more rich people in Liberia. And that's the point I was trying to make, right? As
Yeah.
far
Yeah.
as making sure that Liberians are invested, and they are invested in these concessionaires, making sure they are A class, B class shares in the government should own at least 25 or whatever 10% of the A class, and the rest should be for Liberian investors, so that our people too can be. So you create, basically what you do is you create a whole investment class of people there now, right?
Mhm.
So they can invest in that. From that, you see they will be taking the investment. We can open up the country. People take their money and go invest in other places, in other ventures and whatnot. But by and large, you're gonna have actual Liberians, everyday Liberians, actually vested into their countries and the industries that are coming into the country, basically. So for me personally, that's the kind of arrangement I would prefer. But I don't know what the government of the day we actually want.
Hmm. Okay. So mostly you want it to be, from what I'm hearing, you want it to be something that actually benefits, not just the investors, the foreign investors, but something that, benefits the citizens as well. Correct. From
Something that benefits the citizens, but not only that, but we
right.
have our own investment class of people there. So think about it.
Yeah.
If me and you jump on a deal like that, we put together, let's say we put together our mutual fund go in, or our hedge fund, whatever case is, we got our hedge fund go in and buy into this
Right.
petroleum deal. Let's say we own 20% of it, 20% of the deal over time.
Hmm.
We looking at a serious return depending on how well. I mean, that's a petroleum business, so it's going to probably go good, right? So depending on what we do, how much we get from there, we can take that and go into other ventures. But what you have done, basically, me and you will be known as investors now, right? Just like the guys that help Bill Gates and Steve Jobs to fund
Silent
Apple and
partner.
Google
Yeah.
and whatnot. Yeah, so they took their money and went into other things, right? So you have a
Hmm.
whole investment class. People don't have to stay into that alone. They can go and expand the horizon into other investments. And then that's how you open the country, and that's how you bring Liberia into their own economy. So it's something
Yeah.
along those lines I'll be looking at. I won't be looking at a fully debt structure. I won't be structuring a defaulted debt. It shouldn't be debt. It shouldn't be solely debt. Right? You can't just structure this on a debt level. I don't think that should be the
So,
case.
so that's a great point you mentioned. Talk to me about that. When you say you don't want it to be fully, that's a great point. You don't want it to be fully debt structure. And what is your reason for not wanting it to be fully debt structure? Would you, and if you were to go some equity route, meaning like if you don't want to go the full debt structure, how would you go about it? Uh,
And that's what I'm saying, right? I don't want the whole thing to be financed by debt, right? Where the
okay,
company come in and say, oh, we give this so and so amount, and the government will be obligated to pay over time, you know what I
right,
mean, and stuff like that. No, you don't want full debt, because we have a history with debt. I think we did a show here on debt before. So we have a
yeah,
history with debt in our country, a very bad history with debt in our country. So you don't
absolutely,
want to do that. You want some sort of equity participation in any deal that you have going forward. If we had an equity participation in Firestone, things would not have been the way it happened, right?
mm,
If we
mm,
had equity participation in ArcelorMittal, things would not be the way they are right now, right? So the goal is for us to strive to get Liberia, not just Liberia, but Liberians into these deals, right? A Liberian guy
mm.
in a Liberian millionaire, a Liberian billionaire. Listen, if I get $1 million tomorrow, I'm not going to no country to go invest there. I'm going to Liberia, and Liberia I'm going to invest my money in. No Liberian would take that. I mean, I don't know about other people. I'm not talking about putting I get money from government, or because you got to run the government money. When you take it, you got to carry a different place so they can carry it back from you. But I'm talking about ordinary people like me and you. If we
Yeah,
go
yeah,
in like if we go in and invest and get good returns on our investment, I'm not taking my money to take it to Sierra Leone, Ghana. We invested in no country named enough as
absolutely.
refugees. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
taking my money to those places. I'm taking my money back. I'm keeping my money, matter of fact, in Liberia, and try to invest in and try to expand on it. And so that's the goal for the government, right? They should get Liberians involved into these ventures so that the money is not going anywhere. You are Liberian. If you are patriotic, you invest in your country in the process. So that's what you should do. But it shouldn't be a dead deal. Our dead deal is
yeah,
not good for Liberia, right? It should be your equity participation, or part debt, part equity, so to speak.
yeah. No, I agree with you on the part debt part, equity part, and the reason I think the reason why I say that because we talked about that earlier, where we are already at $2.3 billion in debt. So if you do our debt structure, that puts us at 5.2 billion. We are Our GDP right now is I think 4.5 billion, so that well over 100%. So
Yeah,
I
you
agree
are
with you.
rich.
I wouldn't want it to be uh, all debt, structure. But also the bigger question here means that the bigger question is, will the Chinese government want it to be structured that way? One, two, would this be something that the government of Liberia proposes to the Chinese government to say, this is what we want in terms of a structure perspective, because we don't want to be so much ready in debt. So this is the route that we think is more efficient for the country. Do you think this is something that the country like? And this is why I agree with you that they need to bring in people who understand these kind of structure, who understand this kind of thing, because they will be able to look at it from those kind of angle and be able to give those kind of perspective. But do you think will be something that they propose to the Chinese government to say, this is how we want the thing structured because of where we are economically?
I don't know. I can't say.
Yeah.
I can't really know. I can't say what they would propose. I don't know what they would propose. I think
Mhm.
most of what happening in Liberia is more people care more about the political optics than the substance of these
Yeah.
deals, right? So right now
Yeah.
it's a political thing for them, right? Well, 3 billion and whatnot. So everybody's singing the 3 billion songs. What everybody's not doing is trying to sit back and say, okay, what kind of structure do we have here? First of all, what are we trying to achieve? What kind of problem we're
Mhm.
trying to solve for Liberian, that if we bring a $3 billion investment here, that is going to help us solve those problems? For
Mhm.
example, right? I tell people, I say, if you build jails in Liberia, you solve three major problems that Liberia have, right? You solve
Mhm.
crime, you solve infrastructure, and you solve job problem. That's three
Mhm.
problems. If you build jails in Liberia today and start incarcerating people that steal from government, you solve three major problems right there, right? You get jobs, Not only that you get jobs, but you face infrastructure because they built the prison itself will be an infrastructure project. But not only
Yeah.
that, you solve the problem
Deter
of crime.
crimes. Yeah.
You deter crimes in the
Yeah.
process, right? But not
Yeah.
only that, depending on where you even build those prisons, you'll be building new towns or cities around those places, because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, the prison needs to be serviced. The prison guard needs somewhere to stay. He can be living moreover and coming to work down there. So there will be new housing built there. So there's a whole flora of things that can happen if you just have to think these things and plan them through. That's all.
Hmm.
And so it depends. Again, back just to go back to what we're saying, it depends what kind of problem we're trying to solve in the country. We're trying to
Hmm.
solve joblessness, we're trying to solve an infrastructure problem, but we're also
Yeah.
trying to solve an investment problem in the country. We want Liberians to
Absolutely.
be beholden to their country also. So we want them to invest in their country. What better way to get Liberian involved than to say, hey, we signed this deal and we have an equity portion of it that Liberians, ordinary Liberians or Liberians of any stripe or kind can invest in. And these are the stocks, right? You can invest in the
Hmm.
stocks and you will own a portion of this thing, this company that's coming, and you'll be an investor in it. What better
Yeah.
way to do that? You can actually set that up.
Yeah. So you that whatever you mentioned is a segue into my next question here in terms of what projects do we think this 3 billion can be earmarked for? Meaning, I think you highlighted some of them. We have an infrastructure problem. We have uh, even soft infrastructure such as telecommunication and all of those
Yeah.
uh, issues. Uh, we have education. Um, so I hope they're not going to just take this entire 3 billion and just dump it into that refinery and call it a day, right? I
I hope.
I I, I hope not. I hope at least a fraction of it will go into solving one of the biggest problem, which I think is probably the biggest economic problem we have, which is electricity. Maybe
Yeah.
take some of that, take another 600, take 600 million and build maybe another 80 megawatts dam. I mean
Yeah, that's
hydropower somewhere, right?
that's St. John River is right there. You can
Right.
build stuff there.
Yeah. So the biggest thing here is what are they going to earmark this project, this 3 billion towards? Because that is going to determine how we're able to service it. Meaning, if those project or that particular project is able to generate enough cash flow over time to be able to service this debt, will make it more sustainable. If now, I think you mentioned earlier, we're going to struggle towards it. Um, but from from what you are seeing in Liberia right now,
Hmm.
would you allocate the entire thing to that refinery, or would you, you know, spread it out over certain areas?
I think we don't know the structure of of this year. It's just an MOU,
Right.
so there's not a lot of details. So speculations wouldn't help that, right?
Hmm.
But again, if I was in the government, if I was on the part of the government,
That's
right,
exactly what I want you to do. Right.
I would be structuring this in a way that this is a Chinese company. They're coming in to build a refinery,
Hmm.
right? I want this to be a business or private public private partnership in
Hmm.
endeavor, right? So
Hmm.
the Chinese company would be the private part, right? They are the private investor. They bring in the money. They bring in the expertise, the technical know-how. Liberia is providing the site, the resource, the land resources, and all that stuff that comes with it, right?
Hmm.
So my portion of this deal, I want it to be faced in a way, or maybe let's take it a step. Let's take it a step forward, right? Let's create
Hmm.
a special purpose vehicle. Let's create a SPV, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way Liberian can own stuff in that's one of because the Chinese company is already established. They have their
So that would be
investors
one
in
of your
China.
recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, they have their investor in China already, so they're not coming to give Liberia a portion of their company, and
Hmm.
Liberia shouldn't want a portion of their company. What Liberia should
Absolutely.
say is, let's create a special purpose vehicle or SPV, right? That is going to own whatever company. Let's create a special purpose vehicle, right? And then the special purpose vehicle is going to own that owns the refinery. Then in there, Liberia's going to own 50% of whatever that company is worth, the share or whatever that company is worth,
The SPV,
50%,
right.
and the Chinese company can own another 50%. Then that way, Liberia can say, okay, I own a 50%. We want to increase our in the investment class here. And so let's have Liberians invest in this, right? And you put it out there for Liberians to put the money in. No, believe me, there's money in Liberia. People just don't know how to utilize this money or where to direct it.
Absolutely agree with you on that.
There's money in Liberia. You put that kind of incentive in place, you will see the kind of money that will be funneled into that. You do 2 or 3 of those things, you have a whole different Liberia we're talking about here right now. Because I'm telling you, the old man I can keep the Susu Club money. Then at the end of the day, they just think about it. You get a Susu Club, your collect maybe $1 money now. So we're talking maybe they collect $3 billion $1 too, right? Let's say they collect $3 billion Susu money. It's $3 billion Susu money. Then at the end of the year, instead of taking that money and investing in something, everybody can okay, we come and share the Susu money. Everybody buy the Lapa Claw, where they see Lapa Claw to share the money instead of that. But if you took that money and say, this is a venture, right? This is a company. If you take some of your Susu money and put it in a company over time, say the company give returns at a 5% interest rate or a 5% rate of return in Liberia, right? So that's your 3 billion times 5% or whatever percent. You know how much you're looking at over time? So there's money to be made. It's just like, how do we structure this country and by extension, this economy so that people can be able to partake into it? And that's what we should all be thinking about.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on the SPV structure. I think that would be maybe if we do want to create Liberian participation into this deal, I think that will be the ideal route to take. I think that would be the ideal route, right? Where everybody participate in the SPV, and the Chinese company own half, the government Liberia own half, and through that other half, we citizens of Liberia and people can really participate in that. But again, like you said, I think what we've seen so far is the celebration, and not really so much thoughts are being put into this in terms of how we should structure this from a short-term perspective, and also what it's going to mean from a long-term. What type of cash flow we want to generate from this in order to be able to pay back this, if it's going to be our debt, or whatever portion of it is going to be debt, to be able to pay back all of that. What that burden is going to mean on the country in terms of if we take on the debt aspect of it. So I'm not seeing a lot of substance being discussed on the social media. I think all we're seeing is the celebration, and this government is doing so well in terms of really adding substance in terms of what that means for the country. There's, like I said, there's 3 sides to every case. There's the worst case scenario, there's the base case, and then like if you're too optimistic, there's the up case. I think at this point we're just looking at the base case, that this is a great deal, but we're not looking at the worst case. And
I think our government officials, they don't do a good job in tamping down our people's expectations, and that's what led to most of the strife. That was part of what led to most of the strife that we have had in the country. Managing people's expectations in terms of what is actually can happen, what they can actually do versus what they cannot do. Right now, everybody is, the president signed $30 billion. $30 billion is not coming to Liberia. No Chinese company bringing $30 billion to Liberia. That is just an MOU. That is just something where they say, okay, me and you have an understanding. A lot of things have to happen for that particular deal to materialize, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that have to happen. Sometimes it takes, this is not even a year's project, right? Sometimes it takes up to 3, 4, 5 years. So let's say this whole process drags out until 5 years. So
they could be on their way out.
You could be on your way out. The next guy coming in does not, he does not fancy signing that. So we have to tamp down the expectation here. People have to give our people a real sense of what is obtaining in the country, so that they can tamp down their expectations, so that people, if you get people to manage their expectation, you would do well as a government or as an administration. But if you lift expectation up like the way they are, and people, because the next thing people's gonna be, well, I say I'll bring it 3 million, I had 3 million, I had 3. I mean, sorry, 3. I'm making them money small. Sorry, $3 billion.
You're gonna get attacked. You're going to get attacked for that. Calm down,
Three
easy.
billion, yeah, $3 billion. $3 billion is not coming to your country readily. There's a whole lot of things that your government have to do also on their side, right? This is
Yeah.
just an understanding. It's a whole lot of things. This process, and the sooner you start to explain this to people in this sort of way, the better it is for them in terms of setting expectations, right? But if you just don't explain, because the average man out there just yet 3 billion, you think it's a lot of money, that money that coming in tomorrow, that the Chinese people bring into the culture tomorrow. No, it's not going to happen like that, right? It's a process. It takes time, and who knows? Maybe it might be 3 years from now before you see that. I don't know what the time frame is, but it's not right away. It could be sooner, it could be later. But you have to create a reasonable expectation in the country about these things, because if
Yeah.
you lift people hopes like that and these things does not happen, that's when the people get mad, or you say you let them down, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that. So it's a way that you can do it. There's a way you can do it, but it has to be measured so that you don't create this kind of hysteria in the country about something that is not actually going to actualize until maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, you know.
Yeah. But from this country, I don't want to get too political, but from not this country, from this administration standpoint, do you think this is something, if, you know, given what they have done so far in terms of the, uh, you know, lack of success in terms of because they have gone to the United States, they went to, I think, South Korea. So far, they haven't really been able to really get anything substantial, tangible, something in your hand. Like we said, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. The owner
Yeah,
birds
yeah,
are
that's
still
true.
in the
That's
bush.
true. That's true.
The owner
Mhm.
birds are always in the bush. When they go there, the person say, hey, it's in the bush. You got to take your rubber gun and shoot it down. So do you think this is something they have to really push forward to make sure it happens within this term? Because if not, I don't see anywhere else maybe they can get that quantum of money for that kind of project, because definitely the World Bank won't give them that kind of money. Their quote unquote step parent, the USA, definitely is not going to do that. Actually, there's another question I also have on that political implication as well. So do you think they really need to, put pedal to the metal here to really make sure this happens within their term to make this happen?
Look, Liberia is suffering from something what they call in economics called a neighborhood effect, right?
Hmm.
So that is like what's happening in the neighborhood, right? So if you
Hmm.
look at Liberia, you look at her neighbors, you look at Guinea, you look
Hmm.
at Sierra Leone, and you look at Ivory Coast, right? If you're an investor, you're a foreign investor, and you had money to invest, which of these countries you will rather put that money into? Seriously speaking.
That's a great question.
So the thing is, it's not that Liberia is not an island, right? You are
Yeah,
competing for resources against other countries that are way better than you, that have done the legwork way and are doing the legwork way better than you. And
yeah,
then you go to the world and say, oh, we fine, we're a small country, we defy African. Nobody cares about our history. Only you,
yeah,
Liberia,
yeah.
care about it. You
Hmm.
have to put your house in order. So again, you are competing for resources. So you look around you like, what are these people doing better? What would make a foreign investor want to come pay him money? The reason the Chinese runs to Liberia, or this Chinese company runs to Liberia, is because of corruption. They know
Hmm.
our country legal system is bad. They know our
Yeah,
government officials are corrupt to a large extent. They know all these things about our country. So it's not a clean place that you can come and do business at and make legitimate money and whatnot and stuff for and so on. No, they know the country is very manual. There's no the technology is not, we don't have the latest technology. So they know
mhm,
these things about the country. They know our country profile. Who told you these people just sit down and fold their hand? They say, okay, we're not going to Ivory Coast, we're not going to Ghana, we're just coming to Liberia. You know what I mean? They know our
mhm.
country profile already. They know how we operate. They know how our government officials operate. So they
Yeah,
know those things, and so they come and they pick us apart, right? Right in front of our own face. Before we get to know, it's late. People have exporting our natural resources unknown to us. The
hmm,
government is not getting the tax revenue from these things. They're losing revenue in the process. So they know these things. So what will you do to make yourself competitive? You look around, you fix your
Yeah.
regulatory environment, you fix your tax environment, right? You fix your infrastructure, right? You fix your infrastructure. Infrastructure encompass. When we talk infrastructure, we're not talking just road. We're talking
Yeah.
road, train. I mean railroad. We're talking telecommunication. So that all that thing in that infrastructure, and not only road they're
Hard and
talking about.
soft
So
infrastructure.
yeah,
Yeah.
hard and soft infrastructure. So when I say infrastructure encompass everything, I'm just talking, So I don't want people to think, say I'm just so infrastructure encompass. So you fix your infrastructure, you fix your regulatory environment, you fix your tax environment, right? You start to create, you start to pass credible budget also, right? You can't always recast your budget every year you recast the budget 2 or 3 times. You can do that. You have to, that's one of the things I appreciate about the senior comrade Gaffron, and one of the things he said in a confirmation hearing: start passing credible budgets, and then people will start to look at you and say, "Oh yeah, these people are not just shooting for the star and falling among the moon, but they actually know where the star is and they're shooting for it." You start
Yeah.
passing credible budgets and these things, and people start to look at you differently. Okay, like bro is on to something here. You know what I mean? They're fixing
Mhm.
things that needs to be. So internally, these are the things that you need to do before going
Yeah.
out there and then attracting credible investors. I'm not talking about people that will come, credible investor, people who will look at the environment and say, yeah, Liberia is a very good place to do business, right?
Mhm.
And look at you and say, yeah, okay, yeah, we can bring yes, you can bring 3 billion to Liberia, and that would be a good investment, and you will get your return. You get a very high, like you one of the shows you made a mentions of. It's a very critical time. Our people don't read the international news a lot, right? The
Yeah.
Fed is
Yeah.
about to
Yeah.
start cutting rates in America. Investors are going to start looking for high return,
Yep.
right? The American interest rate is about to start dropping like way down. So
Mhm.
the Fed's going to start cutting rate. So if Liberia needs to position herself as other economies have done in the past to be able to say, hey, we can give you
Take
higher
that wave
return
of.
in this country here
Yeah.
if you come and invest in
Yeah.
this country, and why not? So
Yeah.
because people are looking for higher yield for the investment, so they will look at it and
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm going down there. I will get a
Yeah.
higher yield for my investment, and then you will see money to stop. You'll not even have to do the much of the work. You'll see
Exactly.
people will start coming to you with these things,
Yeah.
But we have to do the work. Nothing is magic. Everything is hard work, but it can be done.
Yeah. I agree. So maybe two questions here, and then we'll go and take some comments because I think we have a few there.
Okay.
So, I think you alluded to this. We are taking apparently trying to do we're not taking we're apparently trying to do a deal with the Chinese, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in the words of Xi Jinping to the African countries, he said, choose choose China, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here also in Liberia, yeah, I will stick to Liberia. In Liberia, we have an overlord, meaning uh, your stepchild, because I mean your step parent, because I'm a step parent. You have a step parent who dictates to you guys in terms of what to do and what not to do. So there's what I'm trying to get to here. There's a geopolitical play here. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think the the take of the U.S. is going to be that Liberia is now leaning towards China, uh,
No,
right under her own nose? I know we don't do politics here, but I think this is something very important that
I,
Africa, not just Liberia by itself, but Africa is leaning towards China, and Xi Jinping is urging the African countries to choose. They should choose China. But what do you think that implication is going to be for Liberia with her step parent that won't let her do her own thing?
look, I don't see it as that. I think our leaders behave like children when they go to the United States for everything, buying to them and asking them to dictate which way they should go and whatnot. Liberia is a sovereign country, and I mean that literally. And even
Hmm.
though she hasn't been acting as a sovereign country since
Yeah, yeah,
1847, but she is sovereign. If you
yeah.
if you move out of your mom and pa house and tell the mom you can fend for
You can fend for
yourself,
yourself. Yep.
and you can do this and you can do that. Nothing wrong with going back for soup every now and then, but you should have rest to your heart. You know what I mean? Oh my, get soup, yeah? Yeah, me just get soup. I got
Yeah,
rest to my
exactly.
heart. but you can't go for soup and rest at the same time. You
All
know what
the
I mean?
time. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
your
every
Omar
now and
place.
then.
Right.
Yeah, you can't do that. Then you're
Yeah.
not independent. Then you're not sovereign, right?
Yeah.
You should be able to at least. I mean, at least if you get rest to the hall to bring soup, you know about. Oh my God, when I soup there, you stay over soup. You say yeah, you get soup. Hey, my son, get soup. That's how it should be. That's how the relationship should be now. Because
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, the reason Liberia cannot, the reason a couple of the relationship between Liberia and America is very complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a perfect relationship, but it's a very strong and historic relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
We share not only this thing, we share values in common, but more besides in these international forums, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a sponsor. I know people don't see it, but that's how the international system works. You have to have a sponsors in these fora, right? I will come back to this point here, but I give you an example again in 2003 when Liberia were doing that thing, right? When they needed peacekeeping force to go to Liberia, everybody were looking like the British were not sending the people there, the French were not sending the people there. They said, "But you, but America, are your people there now there? You should send people there." And then they
Mm-hmm.
be like, that's how you saw the marine ship and all of things, and then they pay for ECOWAS to come in later on and whatnot. So that's the nature of the relationship. That's why America remain indispensable to Liberia, right? That is why,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's one of the reasons. But now, having said that, Liberia is still a sovereign country at the end of the day. We have problems that America can fix. America is not coming to come provide every Liberian job in this country. Liberia have to
Right.
figure it out, right? America is not coming to build airports, seaports, railroads, highways. America is not going to come do that for you. You got to figure it out. Your government have to figure it out, and that's the figuring it out process part of it here, where we go. Hey, China, you want to build port here? Yeah, come. We can have, you can build port here. You can build roads here. You can build, but these are our conditions also. You can just come here and just build ports and roads, but this is what we want. You have to be specific, right? This is what we want. This is how we want it. This is how you should do it. This is how. So that's where Liberia should be. It's not like you choosing China over America, but you have your own interests and you have your own problems that you have to solve. America has a problem that she have to solve, right? Liberia have to start looking like that. But where our interests are merging, then we should where we share common values, common objective, and whatnot. Then we align with America at the end of the day. But
Mm-hmm.
where our interest our interest in terms of what is good for Liberia demands or dictates, then you should make the decision on in Liberia's best interest and not on like based on what America think or how they feel and all the other
Yeah.
things. And no, America doesn't make decision based on how Liberia feel. They make that
Yeah.
decision based on what the people want. We should be doing
Right.
the same thing, even though we
Right.
share values and whatnot. But we should be making decisions because America is not going to do this for you. America is not. Though you wait for the next 100 and how many years, America not bidding you no port, no refinery, nothing. They're not going to do that for you. Even if an American company come to your country, you still have to have these things in place, and it have to be based on what you want and how you want it. It's a give and take relationship, and it have to be seen in that light.
Yeah. So, and the reason why I actually pose that question is because of what happened back in the era of the Cold War, even though you and I were not alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Topman, Tarbert, came in and just shifted each word aggressively like that, and it end up causing him his life, right? And I think there's a little bit of similarity here, even though we're not being so bold in terms of about it, but we are doing so intentionally, meaning, hey, we came here, you didn't give us anything, so guess what, the next president was willing to. And I think the reason why I asked that question, because I think we're in an era where uh I shouldn't say it. The the intensity of that we had in the Cold War era is not as intense. It is more subtle. Is more subtle today, right? Meaning we have the freedom of choice, right? Today we have the freedom of choice to do that. Back then you had no other option. It's either there was no gray area to walk in. There was either black or white. Either you were going to the west or you were seen as the of the enemy, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think in this right now we do have a freedom of choice. So I think I like the fact that the president is exercising that, but I think still, even though we do have this freedom of choice, I think political, a geopolitical geopolitical consequences that lies there, even though we're not seeing it right now. But I think there's going to be some blowback eventually about this. That's if they don't even go and sabotage this entire deal and say, don't don't sign that deal, don't do anything there. This is what we want. So I think there's a little bit of geopolitical aspect of it that I think I wanted us to look at, and that's the reason why I asked
Yeah,
that question.
I don't disagree with you that Egypt, but you have to realize too, America is in retreat on the global stage right now,
That's I
especially
didn't
with
want to
this.
mention. I didn't want to mention that. That's exactly
No,
what I
it's
was
okay. We
thinking.
can discuss those things in here
I
because
didn't want to mention that. Right,
the bandwidth to do that, and
right,
it's obvious, right?
right.
Anybody who reads the and me and you live here, matter of fact, right?
Yeah,
This country is on a retreat on a geopolitical retreat
yeah,
as we speak, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Cold War era was an era of expansion. It was expensive for foreign policy where
Correct.
America was, flexing her muscles
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
whatnot. But it's not the same, like you said. They are in a retreat. You
yeah.
look from partly the 80s. I mean, post Ronald Reagan, so to speak. And
Hmm.
there have been this steady withdrawal of American influence, especially in very sensitive regions like West Africa, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when you leave these voids, somebody has to fill it,
Somebody
right?
has to know.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying China is the best place or the best country that will fill it. Me personally, I won't. I mean, I would do business with them, but Liberia, I maintain Liberia should not be a fear of influence for either Russia or China, right? We can do business with them, but it shouldn't be like that fear of influence. It's almost
Yeah, yeah.
like America going in China backyard and trying to do whatever there. You can do business because you have your own personal interest, Gabby, but
Hmm.
and America understands that they are on a retreat. They are retreating. You look at the U.S. African Summit. The U.S. African Summit is weak
Yeah,
compared to the Chinese African Summit, the Indo African Summit that they have in the East. Right, the
right.
West is weak. They are basically on a retreat here. They only come alive when it's terrorism or something that's actually affect them uh, uh, um nationally, or they have some sort of strong interest in whatever might be going on. But outside of that, they don't do much, right? And
Hmm.
if you leave these vacuums, somebody have to fill it. Our leaders have to figure out how do because the country problem don't stop because America is not there, right? We
Yeah,
still have all these problems. They still have economics problem. We still have hungry people. We still have homeless people. Just how everybody else have problems, our people have problems also, and our leaders have to figure out a way to solve those problems or to mitigate them one way or the other. And if it means doing hopeful business with China, not choosing China, but doing it's a business relationship. It's not a personal relationship or choosing you over America because again, given the historic nature of Liberia America relationship, you can choose China over Liberia America. What happened with Toba was that he was too liberal
yeah.
in his approach. He was
Too
not only
aggressive.
choosing
Yeah,
yeah, he was not only choosing countries that was not something to China, but he was also aligning with the Polisario what a country after Morocco there, nothing Sahara, whatever Sahara country next to them. You were aligning
yeah,
with the Polisario. You were taking side with the people in Algeria, all those kinds of things. Them so
yeah,
it was too fast, right?
yeah,
Especially given your predecessor have held this line here for a long time, right? I can see where he was going, but he was moving too fast and was making people in this diplomatic circle uncomfortable,
yeah,
and it probably led to his. I mean, part of it led to his ultimate demise also.
yeah,
So yeah, but I don't think we are in those times. I think times have changed. I think Liberia can go and negotiate sensibly with foreign countries and based on her interests and whatnot. So yeah.
yeah. So if the other question that I had is let's shift it back to the other question that I had is if, and again that is a big if this prospective 3 billion deal goes through, um,
Mm-hmm.
given what we have seen with other countries, I mean other multinational companies such as the ArcelorMittal, the um, what are the other ones that took off and left? with the way they were structured in terms of transfer pricing. Do you think because of the size of this deal, we need to adjust our transfer pricing policy in terms of to make sure that some of this money or profit that is generated actually remains in the country as well? Because this is, if this goes through, this will be probably the biggest deal in the country's history. And you guys can um, keep me honest here if I'm wrong. But if this goes through, this would be the biggest deal in probably the history of the country. And what that would mean is that if this factory end up being built, there will be so much job, but also there will be so much profit generated by this Chinese company or entity or whatever it is. Do you, for a country to benefit from that, do you think we need to maybe revisit our transfer pricing in terms of how or how much can be transferred out, what percentage can be
Of
transferred
course,
out? Right.
oh my God. Of
Yeah.
course, you have to do that. You
Yeah.
have to. That's another. You have to close these leakages. And when they talk about leakages, not just tax business, it's talking about these things. How money get out of Liberia is ridiculous. The kind of money that gets out of that leaves Liberia to go to foreign countries is ridiculous. It doesn't happen anywhere else. It won't happen anywhere else
Yeah.
except Liberia, right? You have to fix that. That's a ground zero for everything. You have to fix your financial system. You have to ensure financial security. Your
Yeah.
system have to be really tightened so that, yeah, of course, Gabby, that has to happen.
Yeah.
You have people. Look, there's no way. I live in Ghana for a period. I guess you live in Ghana. When you go to Ghana, they
Yeah.
don't give you US dollars,
No.
right? When you go to Ghana for anything, they give you the Ghanaian CD. You go do whatever you
Yeah.
want to do with your CD. You don't see US dollars in Ghana. You will not see it. I mean, I understand the differences, but
Yeah.
now coming to Liberia, I'm not saying we should rush to a single currency right now because the dual currency is so entrenched. It has so many impacts. So it would take time. It would take time for us to get rid of it. But long
Yeah.
long story short, but nobody should be able to transfer or go to a bank and get crazy sum of money or transfer crazy sum of money here without some sort of suspicion or some sort of investigation be done. I'm sitting here in America. If you go, you collect $10,000 from the bank. That's an O5 report for it.
Absolutely. Automatic. Yeah.
Automatically, as soon as
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
try it, that's an O5 report for it, and we investigate where that money going. Where you saying first of all, you can't even move cash about like that. That's wire transfer. So
Yeah.
that's why they can charge you for wire fraud, right? So that's wire, and you have to get wire instructions and all those things. I know. We're talking banking thing, and yeah, I'm sorry, but I have to go there. But long thing short, no, I mean, long story short, nobody should be moving money like that in the country. We should really fix our financial system so that it's stable, so that it's secure. And a part of the reason that was going to attract investors here also, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
stability of your financial system, the security of your
Absolutely.
financial system, right? Those are the things that are going to make people to come into your country or want to do business in your country because of those things, because they know that money is secure. They know there's not going to be any kind of red herring in the country in terms of financial impropriety, right? So
Mhm.
we have to fix these things. Definitely. If money like that come into the country, we have to fix it. And no money like that should be coming into the country. Matter of fact, before money like that come into the country, we should get Liberians involved in these things, right? Liberian banks should be involved in these things. Think about it. Just think about it. How much banks makes here? How much a bank make here just from facilitating transaction, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how bank make their money here. There's no reason why our local banks will not be involved in these foreign transactions that are coming into the country. They should be involved in every way, shape, or form. They should be involved because that's how they make their money also. That way you will
Mhm.
make the bank will be profitable. When banks are profitable, meaning what? They will be able to extend loans to people. They'll be able to
Yeah.
create a whole new industry. They'll be able to finance industries and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, all these things are interconnected. So yeah, we should fix the system. We should make it stable. We should make it secure.
Yeah. And again, I always like to give my thought process behind these questions is the if this deal end up going through, it will become not probably. I just checked so far. I haven't seen any deal that big. If it does, you
It will
know,
be the biggest, yeah.
it will be the biggest deal in terms of investment. And in as much, let's say hypothetically, we do end up structuring a in a SPV, special purpose vehicle, where Liberian have the ability to invest. There's also another 50% of profits that will be going to the Chinese companies, right? Now, if we don't have a good transfer pricing policy in place, and this company or country is allowed to just hoard that entire profit out of the country, uh, I think it won't serve us in the long term. Meaning that we should be able to have some bit of that money recycle back into the economy. They can reinvest it into other things and other things as well, but not to entirely just take the whole thing out. It would, in
And
that sense, it will make us like a where we're just be it would just we would just be depleting, uh,
let's think about it this way, right? How
foreign.
does
Yeah.
the Chinese have investment in America? How you think they remit their profits in America from America to China? How do you think that remittance is done? You think it's done in cash
No, it's not done
or
in
through
cash.
wire
Yeah.
transfers? So
Right.
if you notice, the Chinese hold most of their investment in America in treasuries,
Yep.
right? They
Yep.
hold most of their investment in treasuries. So that's another way the Liberian government, they have to, again, it comes down to credible budget, credible system, credible everything, credible in place. Nobody's going to subscribe to a treasury bill that, you can't tell the rate when the rate would
You can't
be.
hold value, right?
You can hold value and whatnot. So that's why. But long story short, yeah, that's some of the mechanism we have to start sitting, bringing the people in that know how these things works, right? You start bringing them to the table so that we can start figuring it out, right? So that we have a competitive edge over the neighborhood, because that's the neighborhood that is affecting us. If the neighborhood got it right, people will go to them. So you need to bring your best and your brothers to the table, right? The Chinese, we're not. If you have a system in place where the Chinese can buy into your country debt, right? Hold their holdings into in terms of T bills, Liberian T bills from the central bank and whatnot. And if they want to remit that money, they will have to sell it. They will have to sell the T bill or whatever to be able to remit them. That's how the Chinese remit their money back to their country here. You hold more.
Yeah.
They own the Chinese home. They hold their debt in treasury bonds and stuff
In
like that.
notes.
That's how they remit their money. No Chinese man taking US dollar and just sending it to their country. It's not happening.
Yeah.
It's based on
Agreed.
value.
Agreed. Because if that continues to whatever extent, it's going to deplete the foreign reserve in our country.
The foreign
That's
reserve of the country, yeah, that's what's going to happen. And but how you
cause a
build
problem.
foreign reserve is by them buying into your stuff, right? There's a demand for the Liberian stuff. You will see the Liberian that will be in demand, and the foreign money that they will send, it will be helping our reserve, right? You
Yeah.
build up your foreign reserve through that means. The Chinese people are not going to take money out of the country if you have a credible system in which they can store value.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to. I have one more question here, but let's go to the comments here, and then after that, I'll pose that question, and then we go on from there. All right. So this is Joe Morris. He
Jose.
says, as we lobby for foreign aid and investment, Liberia must be diplomatically alert to avoid its diplomatic relation in current international relation.
That's true, Joe. We agree. But Liberia have problem that our diplomatic relation are solving. Our diplomatic relation are solving the jobs problem in the country, and not solving our infrastructure problem in the country. So we have to do what we have to do. Yeah, we have to be friendly, but you have to do our best. If you're children eating your hall for days, and somebody say your neighbor hall so and so, you care about what your neighbor doing. No, you won't care. You want to feed your family. So Liberia has to solve our problems.
Yeah. And this is some ponic, some symposious. Symposious.
I let him
whatever that means. He said they are going to build refinery, but where is the oil coming from? That's a great question.
So
do we have oil discovered in our region?
No. So what a refinery does is that you don't have to have oil to have a refinery, right? Right. What a refinery does is take the oil that you get. So we get oil from different countries. So the oil comes in cruise state, and then that's where you get kerosene, gasoline, airplane fuel, all those things. You need a refinery to do that. So that's what a refinery will be doing. You don't have to have oil to have a refinery.
Samponic, there's your answer. You have it.
Some point you got to pay for that knowledge, though.
All right. So this one is, man, Morris is busy today. He said, in
Yeah,
lobbying for
Morris
foreign aid
watching
investment, must be aware not to ruin its standing diplomatic. Yeah, I think that is
the
pretty much the same
the
question
same thing.
reframed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
And I think he's here again further down this line. You say
He
you
meant y'all.
guess, yeah, your
He meant
guess
y'all.
correctly observe that instead of being excited about the figures associated with the new bargain being negotiated and leveraged, we ought to be asking the hard questions now. Where Here is where genuine patriots and the press can come in as public eyes. Absolutely.
I I
You know,
totally agree.
that is exactly what we were saying here, that we need to be asking the right questions and really,
Hmm.
what do we want? This guy is busy. I mean, thank you for taking
For
your
watching,
Saturday
Joe.
to really
Yeah, Joe. Thanks for
for
watching.
contributing. Yeah. He has another comment here. He said, the boycott government must also strictly regulate and release the release of official information to prevent misinforming the public on the authentic position of the government activities and operations. I do I don't
I
mean
don't know.
withholding of information from the public. That is perfectly.
I,
I think I
I
meant to say that.
mean,
Like, they haven't really articulated, their intentions, or just give a brief summary of, why you're pursuing this deal, what you're going to do with it, what your intentions are, and all of these things. And say,
hmm
this is, I think, it's something that is, we're used to with this government. They don't communicate. I'm sorry to
that's
say, and they
every
have a
government. That's every post-war government. Not just
yeah, they
this
don't
government. They don't
communicate
communicate
at
well,
all.
and that has to do with policy. That's how we do with vision, and that's what we should be. Our politics should be substantive because people have vision. If say this government had a vision for increasing the amount of refinery in the country. So before the president leave, they
Articulate
say,
that.
"Hey, we hope and by going to the Asian African summit or wherever we're going to get investment to come, so we can see if we can get new
Right,
refinery build, new this." So you
right.
articulate that so people already know this is what you're going to do, but you can't go there. And then it happened. Then people still speculating on what
We
happened, all the
still
kind of thing.
exactly.
So that's what happened. So we do
We're
things in
still
the
guessing.
reverse in Liberia.
Joe,
Yeah.
thank you. That is a great comment. Great comment. That is, we do need information so we don't speculate. We don't People don't get misinformed. Um, I agree. I think this is
That's,
oh, William,
yeah, that's
William,
been.
William, William. He said, indeed, we want Liberians to be partakers in the economy. I think this is in reference to the SPV
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Okay.
structure that
All
he
right.
mentioned. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. And this is William again. He said the same risk company take when they come to Liberia and then succeed is the same risk we Liberian want. That to
I trust
of
the
choice
same we like
choice of
being one
decision or risking our investment.
deciding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Whatever. I don't disagree. There's a lot of money sitting out here. Like brain people are not poor. They don't know how to monetize their assets. That's I think that's why our problem is. Once you unlock that, you have a lot of money going into the country. There's a lot of, especially people talk about the diaspora being, a place that you can tap into, but no diasporan will want to go invest other than building a horse or trying to do the one or two small business. No investment wise, nobody want to put their money into something that the system is not fixed to handle. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Again, identification, all those things that we have talked about in the past before, all those things needs to be handled. Can you imagine me? I take money from my house to go to Liberia to go invest in Liberia. Well, I mean, in terms of like public company now, if there is a public company to go invest in Liberia,
yeah.
what's the return and whatnot? You have to put these structures in place. I think we should
I mean,
prioritize. We should start.
as far as the returns in terms of that is up to you. That is, you have to calculate the internal rate of
Your
return,
rates,
whether the
yeah.
risk is worth
Mm-hmm.
the return, and you have to
Yeah.
determine that. Basically, that there are tools out there to determine that. But I think one thing I agree with you is if the, like you said, the diaspora with the capital that they have are not willing to invest because of these risks, whether within the government or they don't have the ability to, like you said, calculate some of these things, whether they want to take risk or not. I think it's incumbent upon the government to nudge them into that, meaning you entice them, you give them some kind of incentive to draw them in, to entice them, to nudge them into investing in the country. But I don't think there has been any intentional. I mean, I saw the diaspora investment thing they had recently in Liberia, which if I were anywhere close to the presidency or president, I would after right after election, I would do a tour in the country here to really come tap into this diaspora. But I don't think any government is doing that. And this is where the capital is. We send 800
Yep.
million back home every year. So
And think about how much they're sitting on in this country. That just what they can
exactly.
send from working.
Yeah.
Think about what
Yeah.
where the actual wealth is in their homes, in their
Yeah.
businesses, and whatnot. Think about it. You know how much many more is still there. People are not going to tap into that when you got the kind of thing going on. But yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead with the next comment.
So this is Flex, fix electronics. I think this guy fixes electronics. He's from YouTube. He said
Okay.
China is top importer of gold and silver, not to mention the other industrial metal, aluminum and copper. Um, uh,
I don't disagree. And that's why we
yeah,
need to be careful. We need to do business with them wisely because the economy is still growing. China still has a growing economy, right? Yeah.
yeah,
So they're still growing. They still need all these things to manufacture stuff to send outside to the world. So yeah, we have to do our due diligence. They have done theirs and they know how to get what they want. So we need to
he
do
said
ours on our
those
side.
precious metal are for industrial purposes. So here is some panic against. How wise is it if every oil producer are trying to build their own refineries? Um, um, that is a good question. Um, I mean, Nigeria has the biggest right now. Um, I
What was
think
how wise it is if
Uganda,
every oil producer are trying to build their own
yeah,
refinery?
Uganda has one as well. I think that Ghana probably has one as well.
What he trying
Um,
to say, what he means.
I think the reason behind that is the value added that the refinery brings. It costs more to import the finished product into the country than it would if you bring it in a crude state and refine it in the country, right? So in this case, let's say if we do end up building this refinery in Grand Bassa or Bikana, right? We can buy oil on a global stage, crude oil on a global stage, right? And where you can buy oil future cheaply, import it to Liberia, and make a quantum of money refinery and into all kind of finished products that the country can use. So I think that's the benefits there. So I think there's the value added um, process is what they're looking to take advantage
Some
of.
point is saying
This,
every oil producer is not wise for every oil producer to build their
he
own
said, how
refineries.
wise? He said, how wise is it if every? How wise is it
If every
if
oil
every?
producer are trying to build their
Right,
own refineries.
right.
So
But we're not
I
oil
think
producing.
we don't produce oil, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have refineries, right?
Right.
We should have
Yeah,
refineries,
exactly.
right? Because we import oil, crude oil, and then the refineries turn that into kerosene, whatever, gasoline, diesel, whatever we need
Yeah,
domestically. That's how we get cars running and all those kind of things. So it's important for if you don't produce oil, you could have refineries. But in terms
yeah,
of the producers themselves having refinery, they can have the refinery for that purpose also because the domestic economy will need gasoline, crude oil, blah blah blah. But not only that, they have to export that. The production is also done for export, right?
yeah,
So they have to export those oil to other countries. So yeah, they will have refineries for their own domestic consumption, but they will also export the rest of it to the rest of the world. So it's
yeah.
important for them to have refinery also.
All right. So I think this question is directly for you. It's for Toga. Toga said we don't have aspect on climate change. Huh. we don't have aspect on climate change, then we are planning on to build refining factory. What will happen to our small environment of 43,000 square miles? I think
Yeah.
you understand the
So
question, right? Yeah, right.
yeah, Toga, like that's what we're saying. You should bring your best and your brightest people to the table when you're doing this negotiation, because they too will take into stock the effect of what climate change is going to have on the environment. You know what I mean? And the communities, not just the environment itself, but the communities around those so-called concession or big businesses or whatnot, the effect. So you don't just have to come and negotiate, you have to have your EPA people, but you also have to bring experts from overseas to talk about these things also. So it's important. So when as we go through this, me, you, the rest of the citizen race should be asking our government, because the old people in Grand Bassa that have been living their life quietly, peacefully, using the environment to make their living, are somehow going to be affected. And then some government official, once they sign a deal, they're not going to look back again. So it's important. It's very, very important that we have these conversations as far as what's going to happen to the environment, because the people are them themselves going to be affected, not just so much of the job, but what happens
Yeah,
with the people that have been living there also.
yeah,
I seem getting a lot of
and
comments
that's.
today.
I know he's busy, and I think he meant to what do you call it? Reframe his question or clarify his question. He said, "I meant to say Liberia does not have oil, but what to build want to build a refinery. What if all the oil producers have refineries?" And I think I answered this question earlier. So even if all the oil producing countries do have refineries, you can buy it on global stage, meaning
Yeah,
there's the Texas, there's or the Brent crude oil from the USA. Texas
the
produces a lot
West
of oil.
Texas. Yeah,
You can
the
buy
West
it from
Texas. Yeah.
Saudi. Um, if you want to be, you know, you want to be too risky, you can go to, Venezuela, where it is now cheaper. Buy it there, import it to Liberia and refine it. So you don't technically have to be
So,
producing oil to have a
so
refinery.
yeah, but you have to make some point to understand, right? The oil in question does not come in the form of gasoline. It doesn't come in the oil. When people produce oil, that's not gasoline they're producing. That's not
Crude
kerosene.
oil,
That's
I
not
think I
engine
meant to
oil.
say.
That crude
Right.
oil. Crude oil is the product that we get gasoline, kerosene, asphalt, all these different things. So
It's in a
you gotta
raw
you
stage. Right.
yeah. So there's so many reasons why you need a refinery. It's not just because you're producing oil. So your domestic economy need that also.
Yeah. So that's the reason why you don't need to be producing oil to refine it. Uh, Matter of
The
fact, you
question
create a
really
lot of
go
jobs by
go.
doing that.
Yeah.
Ducor Scientific, a man from Ducor Palace area. He said, from what
Mm-hmm.
I've read about these Chinese deals so far, the memorandum were discussed on the margin. How is this
Okay.
any different from the recent South Korean and the US? I mean, what you want to cause problem here this Saturday evening, right? What I've read
uh,
is how recent is that the recent from the South Korea and the U.S. negotiations. Is this not another smokescreen to deflect attention from the LTA saga? No, I don't think it will be that. 50 men delegation and growing dissatisfaction across the nation. The Up Unity Party is known to be a master of propaganda. Unfortunately, you can use propaganda to win election, but cannot use it to govern. Man, this
no,
is a
like
dagger
listen,
in the heart.
we
This is a
discuss
dagger.
economics, finance, and whatnot. We this is hard politics. This guy is
This
discussing.
is
Uh,
dagger. This is a dagger. Man, this is
this
too
is
too
hard
brutal.
politics.
I
Yeah,
agree with you. But I would maybe get 2 points here. One, I don't think they will go to that extent. Well, the China and Africa trade thing was real, so uh, I don't think it was a smoke screen. But what I do agree with you is it's borderlines. It kind of resembles what happened in South Korea and the negotiation here in the United States, where it was up to now they're still empty-handed. So I agree with you on that aspect, but I think it was real. But in terms of they using this as a propaganda, I also agree with you on that as well because we've said it, they are continuing to celebrate this thing even though it's still in its infancy. So absolutely.
No, but I
Your
think
take.
I think he's right. I think, and that's what it comes to. That's what I think. We dedicated a good portion of the show in trying to temper down expectations, right? Because he's right. This is not the first time we've seen this thing. They happened in Korea. People were celebrating again about Korea, but then up to now, up to press time, nothing substantive has come from that meeting or whatever bilateral agreement were happening, right? And then you have this again. I think he has right to be skeptical. I think
Yeah.
every Liberian should be skeptical until you see the proof that is in the pudding to make you to
Hmm.
say, oh yeah, this is going to come to fruition. But again, that's what I was saying. This may or may not happen anytime soon. So
Yeah.
it's good to temper down expectations, so to speak. But I think he's right.
Yeah. And whoever you are, Duco Scientific, this is a well thought out comment. And thank you for sharing. I agree with you. It looks
You should watch the show
seem as
more
though you have
often,
a,
Dukwa.
yeah, he has a good understanding of politics, and familiar with this administration. Um, Thank you. Great comment. Scientific, I mean, fix this guy here again. He said the refinery is a hard sell. A billion? Um, yeah, these
That
people
guy
are
is a
coming too hard,
Debbie
man.
Downer.
Yeah, he's
Um,
coming too hard.
Yeah, but you see what I'm talking about, the neighborhood effect. If somebody has $1 billion
Yeah.
to invest, will Liberia be the first place? Is to given all that we're going through, or all the problems that we have as a country, as a people, would an investor be trying to put $1 billion in Liberia in the first place? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, it will be a hard sell. It got to be a hard sell. I agree with you. Um, this is some Ponic again. He said, I know it is crude oil, but thanks for the logical explanation. Okay. Thank you. We just all right. I think that brings us to the end of this. I think we should wrap up here. We're 4 minutes out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we should wrap up here, and we have talked about a lot. But you know, before we wrap up, so Uh, anyway, I wanted to ask another question, but I think we're out of time here. So
Mhm.
we've talked about a lot. We talked about the structure. We talked about the political aspect of it, not just domestically, but the geopolitical side of it. Whether that will even go through, because we saw where the U.S. did to Russia when they were trying to invest in, I think, what is it, Putu Mountain? That deal didn't go through. So this attempt to go eastward and face east, whether the overlords will allow that to happen, that is yet to be seen. So I think we talked about a lot here. But in your closing statement, what do you think should be a takeaway for either the audience or to the government of Liberia in terms of
Look,
this deal? You can go at it from any angle.
look, this is not a deal. This is a MOU. A MOU is not a deal. It's not even a framework yet. It's
Yep.
it's 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 basically nothing, so to speak. It's a
Hmm.
precursor to a precursor, right? So meaning it's a prerequisite to a prerequisite. This have to happen, and then that have to happen, and then have to happen. So there's a lot of things that still needs to happen. So temper down your expectation. There's no TD billion coming to Liberia. Nobody's bringing TD billion to Liberia. People just said, I think I won't bring 3 billion to Liberia, and everybody running away with it. Nobody's bringing 3 billion to Liberia. So temper down your expectation. Wait and see. Get more information from the government. Let's hear what the government gonna say about this thing, and let's see how it eyes unfold in the next few years from here. In the next few years from now, but no 3 billion is coming. I understand the urge to show some sort of win for this government or for this administration, but
Yeah.
it should also be measured, right? It should be measured. You don't set your expectation too high, because there's no 3 billion that's going to come to Liberia. You just need to take it easy. Go ahead,
Yeah.
buy your normal business, like they would say. Go ahead, buy your normal business. There's no 3 billion yet on the way. You know what I mean? The people of Bicano, there's a prospect, but go ahead, buy your normal business. Be your Dombo, eat your Kasawa. Do what you need to do until you get further notice. Nobody bringing no 3 billion be refinery right now. A lot of things have to happen for that to happen, right? And then before it
Yeah.
happens, you will hear from your leaders, your senators, and whatnot. They will hear from you. You will hear from them, and or a lot of things have to happen. So temper down your expectation,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my take from this. The political side as far as the United States and what their interests are in Liberia. Look, American are reasonable people, especially the ones that are involved in these international arenas. They are
Mm-hmm.
reasonable. I think they are sensible. I think they understand these things, right? To the extent that they are on a global retreat on the international front, there's a vacuum here. Somebody have to fill that vacuum, or the countries that are being that are being affected, they have to figure a way out to solve these national problems that they are confronted with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liberia has a jobs problem, or youth or large youth unemployed population.
Mm-hmm.
She have poor infrastructure. Um, she have a government that is challenged, right?
Yeah.
And also a whole slew of things that we can go through. America is not going to solve that for us. We have to figure out a way to solve it for ourselves. And to the extent that we are figuring this out, we will develop strategic relationship with other countries like China,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put Russia in the mix, but China is a good partner, right? Russia and whatnot is like, I don't know. But China is a good strategic partner. It doesn't mean that we are rolling over and going to the east overnight, but we are
Yeah.
harnessing their technology, their business prowess, and whatnot to be able to solve some of our own problem that America is not
Uh-huh.
readily going to solve for us. And so that's
Yeah.
what's happening here. So people, and if you explain that to the Americans, it makes sense to them because they're not filling these voids. Somebody have to fill it. We have to do something about it. I mean, where
Yeah.
our values and our interests converges, yeah, we act in that interest, but for now the Liberia as a country have challenges, and we need, and that's what we elect our leaders for, because they say they know how to solve our problems, and so we put them there to solve these problems. How they solve it, what kind of strategic arrangement that's in place, yeah, so long our people are benefiting in a meaningful way, that's what that matters at the end of the day. America will act in her own interest. I don't think it should be any different for Liberia.
Yeah. Perfect. I think for me, I don't have a lot to say. I think for me, this is still in its infancy. Um, the only thing that I would like to say is that if in fact we do end up pursuing this deal, um, there are we have to do the due diligence. Yeah, I mean, starting now, you know, meaning what we want for ourselves, but most also importantly, we also know what the Chinese people want. What is their reason for, if they're picking us in the region, why are they picking us to invest in us, right? This is like a chess move, right? If I make my move, you're not only just making a move, but you
No,
also want to know why is the other person
I'm
made that
making
move
that
for
move.
which they
Yeah.
exactly. So that due diligence should encompass that aspect of it. We know what we want. We should explore what we want, not just now, but also, um, in the future as well, um, and understand that, right? That way, we're able to go to the negotiating table being confident in our position. The other thing that I would like to say is the structure. How would you like this thing to be structured? What kind of benefit do you think the country should get from it? We shouldn't just look at this as a win for the government, but we should also look at it, as I said, it should be a win for the citizen as well in the immediate and the long term. That we should be able to look back on this deal and say that was a monumental deal that was structured, that was signed, and the country continued to benefit from it. 3 billion will be the biggest. So we need to take our time. I think Percy alluded to this. Bring the right people at the table, cross every T, dot every I, flip every page over, turn every stone over, and make sure that you go into this thing, uh, with your chest up, your chin up, and knowing sure that you're going into something that you really prepare for. But other than that, I think it's a good win for the government, and I hope they continue to pound their feet to the pavement in terms of trying to get something tangible. But
Yeah, that's
that's
true.
all I have to say. Yeah.
Tuko, come back next week. We'll talk about your agro business, the point you made. We'll come back next
Yeah.
week, post the same question, we'll discuss it all the time here. So we can answer
Yeah.
that readily.
But all of you guys, thank you for contributing. Thank you.
Thanks for
These
watching,
were
guys.
great.
Let's do it
These
next
were
week
great
again.
comments.
Um with this kind of participation, that's what make us to wake up and come on the show and want to interact with our fellow Liberians and talk about these things. So keep watching. Tell your friends to tell their friend. You can get some education on some complex issue here. We can explain it better for you. You can get some understanding, but also we can discuss it from a national perspective also. But thank you for watching. Thank you, Gabi.
Thank you. And as we always say, for all Liberians, enjoy your weekend. Ciao.
All right.
We are Liberians.